Hey guys, welcome back to Dream Analytica. The simple man comes home in the evening wondering what's for dinner. The complex man comes home pondering the imponderables of fate, and the enlightened man comes home wondering what's for dinner. The first state is simple consciousness. The second state is complex consciousness, which is the state of consciousness that we are in right now. And the third stage is an enlightened stage of consciousness, the highest state of consciousness. And you can sort of depict these states of consciousness as a field of vision. How wide is your field of vision? So for a simple consciousness, the field of vision might be rather narrow, and a complex state of consciousness is more broad than that of a simple consciousness, and an enlightened stage of consciousness can be described as having a 360-degree view of the world. So our goal right now is to get from complex consciousness to an enlightened state of consciousness. Easier said than done. The problem we have now is we don't understand that there are these levels of consciousness and that there is an evolution of our development. We're sort of stuck at this impasse, in limbo almost, where we can't see anything beyond our level of consciousness. We think we've peaked out, but that's not true. And our goal now is to get from our complex state of consciousness, which describes the man that is educated with his rational values and technological advancements, to an enlightened state of consciousness, which means a higher level than rationality can provide. And it is this feeling of being stuck in this state of consciousness because we are inherently designed to grow, to expand. It's in us to grow and develop, but we feel as though we're sort of stuck in this impasse. So what we ultimately end up doing is try to regress back to a simpler state of consciousness. Why? Because we see that people with a simple state of consciousness are far happier than we are in the developed world. This is particularly the reason why so many people from the West go to countries like India or Indonesia, Bali for instance, to emulate their way of life, to try to attain that sort of state of being. What they're actually doing is trying to regress to a simpler state of consciousness. But that's the problem. You cannot decrease the amount of consciousness you have. Once you've seen it, you have it. You can't unsee it. Meaning you cannot narrow your scope of consciousness once you've attained that state of consciousness. You cannot unsee what you have seen. But that is precisely what most people are trying to do, is to try to find that simple state of being by changing their environment. And in the short run, it does work for a little while, but then they ultimately regress back to their complex state of consciousness. You can't unsee what you have seen. And that perfectly describes consciousness, because for the simpler man, though they may be happy in their situation, due to the lack of rationality or understanding or education, you can sort of see what happens to their environment. Though they have a rich interior life, they may have a very poor outward exterior life. However, for the complex consciousness, they may have a very rich exterior life. However, they may have a very poor interior life, a desolate landscape, if you will. And so complex consciousness, because we don't know that we can move forward and progress, we regress, trying to regain that state of bliss and restore our internal world by regressing our consciousness, but you can't do that. So the only way forward then is to increase our consciousness. The problem with that, and the reason most people fear doing it or don't want to do it, is because it involves a lot more suffering. It is, metaphorically speaking, going through hell to get to the other side. And most people just cannot bear that suffering. So they stagnate. They stay where they are. The most unfortunate part of all of this is that there is sort of a biological deadline to which you can achieve that state of consciousness, and it's called midlife. And there you understand where the term midlife crisis comes from. On a positive note though, Carl Jung developed sort of a pathway for us to traverse, in that he laid the foundation towards reaching that higher state of consciousness by understanding psychology. He laid the groundwork for analytical psychology, which aims to help us to get to that higher state of consciousness through what is called the process of individuation. And it is through this process of individuation that we traverse through hell in order to reach the other side, or the highest state of consciousness. And this is what this channel is all about. It is trying to help people reach individuation, reach self-realization, and to attain that higher state of consciousness. And the way we go about that in analytical psychology is through the analyzation of dreams. For the most part, there are other methodologies to understand yourself, but dreams are by far the most eloquent and elegant way of doing so.